Welcome to True Crime Convos. I'm your host, Lanie. I'm host of the True Crime Fan Club podcast, the It's Haunted What Now podcast, and the Spotify original from Parcast called Crimes of Passion. You are joining me today for True Crime Convos. It's a part of our True Crime Tuesdays on Spotify Live. And tonight we're going to be discussing, or I'll be sharing information about the crimes committed by Oba Chandler. So, if you're watching this, we are live streaming as well on different platforms. So, we are on YouTube and on Twitch and on Facebook. So, welcome everybody for joining. So, before we get started, I always start our our show off with everybody's ASL. So, if you are new here and you are under the age of 18 and have no idea what an ASL is, um, that makes me very sad. So, ASL, drop it in the chat if you are here watching us. Even if you're live, I can also see you on the stream. So go ahead, give us your ASL. So I am Lanie, 34, female, cis female, she, her pronouns, and I am in Texas. I'd love to see where everybody else is from. So share with us in the discussion ASL before we get started. Okay, so tonight I'm going to be sharing the case of Oba Chandler. And we're kind of going to go into the beginning of his life and link to his crimes that were committed. And I know in the description of the show, we talked about how there was a note left and maybe he was the wrong guy. I think after you check it out and you hear the rest of the episode, you'll know. So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us again here, part on Spotify Live for True Crime Convos. Very, very exciting. I do have an announcement to make before we get started. So on July 14th, if you are in the LA area, I'm going to be at the Spotify offices in LA. I'm going to be part of the Parcast Presents panel. They're doing a book signing giveaway for the Parcast book that's coming out called Cults, based off of the Cults podcast. It's very, very popular. And I believe there's a $35 ticket fee, but yeah, she'll get to meet me, Max Cutler, who's the founder of Parcast, and then Ashley Flowers will also be there, I believe. So if you guys are in the area, July 14th, you'll have an opportunity to hang out with me and talk about true crime in person, live, and in living color. All right, so let's get into the life of Oba Chandler as he grew up. So he was born October 11th, 1946, to Oba Chandler Sr. and Margaret Johnson. He was raised in Cincinnati, Ohio, as the fourth of 5 children. So when Oba was only 10, his father hanged himself in the basement of their family home. And it's reported that Oba jumped into the open grave while they were covering the coffin with dirt. Now, unfortunately, I have a cousin who had a similar life experience, so I know how traumatizing that can be. She found her father. He had completed suicide in their backyard, and the kids, her and her brother, had found him when they returned home from school. Now, their father had suffered from depression, was a drug user. So there was a lot of like mental health issues going along that were exacerbated by the drug use and drinking. So it's unfortunate, but you can only imagine being that young and finding your father that way, and then also trying to deal with the grief of that. So it obviously makes me upset for the child that Oba was to have experienced a great loss so early. So when he was 14, he started his life of crime. He was stealing cars and he was arrested a whole 20 times while he was a juvenile. Um, in his adult life, he was charged with multiple crimes, including possession of counterfeit money, loitering, burglary, kidnapping, and armed robbery. Now, Oba was accused of masturbating while peering into women's bedrooms, and one crime he and an accomplice he and an accomplice had broken into a Florida couple's home, held them at gunpoint, and robbed them. So he made his accomplice tie the man up with a speaker wire while Oba took the wife into the bedroom, made her strip down, tied her up, and then ran the barrel of the gun up and down her body. Like he was truly trying to torment her mentally because of, I'm sure there was just a lot of things going on. um, so over the years, he had 13 children with 12 different women, 4 of which were put up for adoption. His youngest daughter was born in 1989. And of course, we're not really going to discuss the children because they're not really relevant to this case in particular. It really just focusing on Oba. So now we go into the crimes that he's most known for, right? So the murders of this family called the Rogers. Now, I will say that this content is a little heavy. We are going to be discussing crimes against children, particularly that they were murdered in this. So if this is a sensitive topic for you or triggering in any way, feel free to hang out with us next week. So Joan Rogers and her 2 daughters, Michelle, who was 17, and Christy, who was 14, left their family dairy farm in Wilshire, Ohio on May 26, 1989 for a vacation in Florida. Now, this family had never left Ohio before, and they were really excited to be able to kind of take this adventure, if you will, down to Florida, even though for me, like, Florida would just not be it. Um, but some people, like, love going there. No, thank you. Um, so they were really, they were amped for that. But on June 1st, authorities believed they became lost while looking for their their hotel, and took an extra vacation day in Tampa. Now, the family met Oba while they were lost, and he gave them directions and was like, "Oh, hey, by the way, I can also take you guys if you're looking for like a good time. I can also take you guys on the sunset cruise of Tampa Bay a little bit later once you find, your hotel and everything and get settled. It's just something nice I would like to do for you." Um, which, I mean, I don't know. It was like 1989, close to the 90s, so it wasn't I mean, I think it was still common for people to take people up on these offers. I think now you'd be like, "Oh, I don't know about that random man." Um, but I think now, or I think then, it would have been common for people to be like, "Oh my god, that's so amazing, that's so nice." Again, these people had never left Ohio before, and so they lived on a dairy farm. You can only imagine that the types of individuals they came across on a day-to-day basis were not people they thought had nefarious intentions. So this offer seemed really nice and a great way to give, Joan and the girls an opportunity to really kind of just enjoy their time in Florida. So they end up leaving their oh my god, I can't speak today for some reason. So the family left their Orlando hotel at around 9 o'clock a.m., and they checked into a day's inn on Route 60 at 12:30 p.m. So there was film that was retrieved from the ladies' hotel room, and the last photo taken was a photo from their balcony of the sunset over Tampa Bay. So this means that the women had not left their hotel and were still there when sunset occurred, and they were last seen alive in the hotel restaurant at 7:30 p.m. But it's believed that the Rogers women got on the boat by the dock on the Courtney Campbell Causeway between 8:30 p.m. and 9 o'clock p.m., and that they were dead by 3 a.m. the next morning. Now, Oba might have used the fact that he was from Ohio to lure the women on his boat, seeing it as a connection since their license plate was also showing that they were from Ohio. Um, and I think that we see that a lot with these types of crimes, these crimes of opportunity. It's not like this was a premeditated crime. The premeditation might have been in the fact that he wanted to commit a crime or that he wanted to commit murders, but not necessarily picky on the victims. And I don't know if any of you in the chat or on the stream can see, or sorry, could share that if you know of any other offenders who've kind of operated in the same way, like who comes to mind for you when you think about offenders who really are about crimes of opportunity versus, intentional crimes, like premeditated crimes. The first person that comes to mind that's probably well known, I say probably, he is well known. The first person that comes to mind in that instance would be Ted Bundy, right? A lot of these crimes that Bundy committed were not premeditated in the sense that he had chosen his victim and was like, oh, yes, this is this person. A lot of it was crimes of opportunity. He banked on the fact that women would be polite to him because he had a cast on his arm or he was needing help carrying something. He took those opportunities to take advantage of the politeness of his victims, which, of course, is now the famous saying, fuck politeness, that My Favorite Murder had coined. Um, so he's one of the serial killers I could think of that is the same way. Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer, same thing. A lot of his victims were sex workers. And so his intention there was, again, to commit a crime with people he believed would not be missed and police wouldn't care to look for. And in some instances, with some of the women that he murdered, I would say probably most of the women that he murdered, that was the case. And so he took this crime of opportunity. And I think Gary Ridgway, with the whole Ted Bundy thing, like, yeah, Ted Bundy was pretty fucked. But Gary Ridgway kind of throws me for a loop because from my recollection of the case, and it's been a while since I've really done a deep dive on it, but from my recollection of the case, he would also go back to where he had left the bodies, like discarded the women's bodies and spend time with them. Um, where he continued to like sexually assault their corpses and, you know, I mean, they were in various states of decomposition. That's kind of how committed he was to maintaining this like figment of a relationship in his brain. And I think those are one of the he's one of the guys that just really kind of threw me for a loop because I had never really had exposure to that when I first like read about him. I didn't really know about like necrophilia, that type of thing. And so when I heard that he would do things like that and actually like try, to satisfy himself with the corpse. And again, this is not in a controlled environment. It's not like he's in a funeral home, where somebody's in a freezer and stuff like that and their body's preserved. I mean, they are out in the elements. And again, in various stages of decomposition. So it kind of threw me for a loop. But that kind of reminded me when I was looking through the Oba case, it kind of reminded me of, Ted Bundy and of the Green River Killer. Same thing, Richard Ramirez, like all of these crimes of opportunity, which I think for me, as somebody who consumes true crime, that's probably the scariest thing to think about. I remember Generation Y. Sorry, I'm going off topic, but that's what we're here for. I remember Generation Y covering the Richard Ramirez case, so the Night Stalker case. Not the original Night Stalker case, or maybe it was the original Night Stalker. I can't remember. Both were pretty much the same, but the idea that somebody could just randomly decide to commit a crime against you, to walk into your house and decide they're going to hold you hostage, or to, that you're going to be the person they murder, like that was so terrifying for me. And I had already been like podcasting and stuff like that. So if I really take time to think through these things and really think about like the type of people that committed these crimes, like Richard Ramirez and stuff like that, and Joseph James D'Angelo, who we know now as a Golden State Killer, who was the original Night Stalker. Those types of crimes, I don't know if anybody feels the same way, but those are the ones that kind of really get to me more so than the ones who have premeditated and like it's within a family or whatever, because you're just like, wow, that's, there were likely signs and people weren't, going to do much of anything because they didn't really know what to do. But these crimes of opportunity, really, the killers who commit those crimes were the ones who kind of threw me for a loop the most. And you can tell me in the chat too, you guys, if you're in the same boat as I am. It's a little not great. Okay, so back to the Rogers. So after they looked at the film, or during the investigation piece, as they find out that Oba likely would have used the connection to Ohio to get them in his boat. Now, their bodies were found June 4th, 1989, floating in Tampa Bay. The first body was discovered by several people on a sailboat as they saw something when crossing under the Sunshine Skyway. The second body was found 2 miles north of the first in St. Petersburg, and the Coast Guard was already dealing with the second body when a call came in about another body about 200 yards east of them. So all three bodies were female. They were found floating face down with a rope around the neck to bind them, and they were naked from the waist down. Now, when their bodies are transported to have autopsies conducted for determining the cause of death, the autopsy showed that all three women had water in their lungs, meaning they were alive when thrown into the water. And Michelle, who was the second body found, had actually freed one of her hands before she drowned. Now, the nakedness of the women indicated that the underlying crime was sexual assault. So a cinder block was tied to all three to ensure they drowned and were never found. But due to bloating from the decomposition, the women ended up floating to the top. So the three women were buried in their hometown on June 13th, 1989, after the funeral service at Zion Lutheran Church. So around 300 people ended up showing up, and police officers were there to keep the news crews out of the service. Now, remember, this again is in the height of, or just coming off the height of, multiple serial killers. You had Ted Bundy, Richard Ramirez, like the who were the guys? The Hillside Stranglers. You know what I mean? Like, this was during this, like, weird phase of just multiple serial killers coming out of the woodwork, committing these crimes, you know, trials happening, etc. So the media took on this kind of voyeuristic atmosphere, or created this voyeuristic atmosphere for people who were interested in these cases and wanted to know kind of the more like salacious or really like unnecessary details. Like, now we look at it a little bit differently, I would say, versus how it was seen then. Um, I don't know. Let me know if you disagree or agree in the chat. So we're going now into the investigation. So the women were not positively identified until a week later, and by then they had been reported missing in Ohio by the husband and father. His name was Hal Rogers. So a housekeeper from Days Inn said on June 8th the room had not been disturbed and the beds had not been slept in. So she contacted the general manager, who contacted the police. Now, the fingerprints found in the room matched those to the body, and the last bit of confirmation came when the Rogers dental records came from Ohio, and they ended up being a match. Now, marine researchers from Florida International University, I used to want to go there, and to Tampa Bay, or University of Central Florida. I'm so glad I didn't. So the researchers from Florida International University studied the currents and came to the conclusion that the women were thrown from a boat, also that the women were thrown off 2 to 5 days before the bodies were found. Now, everything was confirmed when the 1984 Oldsmobile Calais, I don't even know how to say that, Calais? I forgot to look it up. Who knows how to say that? Calais? Calais? It's Calais. I have no idea. Let's just pretend it's an Oldsmobile, like a giant big car. Okay, so everything again was confirmed when the 1984 Oldsmobile Calais, I'll say that the Rogers owned was found at the Courtney Campbell Causeway dock. So there was reason to believe that they had willingly gone there because their car was taken there. So here's what led to Oba's arrest. Now, the case would not have any leads until 3 years later due to so many tips coming in and police really not knowing what was true and what wasn't. As you know, we have people, I can actually give you an example of this because it's actually really sad. Um, because when, oh my gosh. Okay, so for some of you who were here last week or the week before, I had Eric Carter Landine on. He is my friend, dear friend. He hosts the True Consequences podcast, and he just got back from the UK, and he texted me to say that his sister was missing, that they hadn't seen her for a month, and that he was really nervous and he wanted to try and find her. So he creates a missing persons poster. Of course, we as the community come together, post it all across our socials. If you follow me on social media, you likely have seen the poster of or the missing persons flyer. She has been found. She's safe. So that's the good news. But we saw in real time people kind of just coming out of the woodwork to say they'd seen her. Like somebody would say like, "Oh, I saw her at the doctor's office," which was random because it was after 5. "Oh, I saw her with this person on, this day," or whatever. And it was just really to insert themselves, and it was really unfortunate because you have somebody whose sibling is missing, you're contacting them directly, and of course that's going to give them hope that they may be found, or that somebody had seen them recently, and so that was, just great and awesome. And so he had made an update, and that kind of that takes away the momentum that people are feeling to try and get this information out. So it was kind of the same thing that was happening in Oba's case. That everybody was kind of just coming in and saying, "Oh, this is what I saw," or I remember seeing, 3 women that were similar to this here, so it kind of distracted them. Of course, they took in all the leads and tried to see them through. But the biggest tip was found on Madeira Beach. The police bulletin had posted that there was a similar rape of a 24-year-old Canadian woman that occurred 2 weeks before the Rogers murder. Or the murder, sorry. So Oba's handwritten directions and his boat's description, written by Joan, were found in the Rogers car, which led him to becoming a suspect in the case. But he wouldn't be arrested until September 24th, 1992. The police put the handwritten directions on billboards in Tampa Bay, and this was the first time this kind of thing was done in an attempt to find an unknown killer. They were hoping that somebody would pass by these billboards or, those bulletin boards. Imagine, like at a college campus, how they have those kind of just hanging around. Somebody would pass by this and recognize the handwriting or be like, "Oh, I know who that might be." Um, Something similar to that. Now, a former neighbor of Oba's was able to give police an old work order, and handwriting analysts matched the two together and said, like, "Yep, this is the guy. Like, the guy who wrote this note is the guy who wrote this work order." There was also a palm print from the brochure that matched Oba's, who by then had sold his boat, moved away from the area, and he did that pretty quickly as soon as he saw all the billboards were put up with his information, right? So he was like, my time's a little borrowed. I should probably dip on out and go somewhere else." So in 1990, the TV show Unsolved Mysteries, one of my favorites, and I'm sure your favorite too, if you ever watched it as a child, that theme song instilled fear in me because I was either scared it was going to be a ghost, or I was like excited. But Unsolved Mysteries was to report on the Rogers murder. So the episode showed a theory that 2 men lured the women onto the boat, but then that theory was put away when Oba was arrested. A cellmate of Oba's claimed he had a partner, but would not tell police the name of said partner. Again, I don't really trust jailhouse snitches, right? Like, it's kind of just like you're doing it for something. I would trust people who more so are doing it for nothing versus doing it for something. Um, and that's what Oba's cellmate was trying to do. So he was still identified as a suspect, obviously, through this, but the idea that another person was helping him couldn't really be confirmed. So Oba's approach of 2 Canadian tourists showed that he could do all of this work alone and without the help of a partner. Now, police also considered Hal Rogers' brother, John Rogers, a suspect, even though he was in state prison at the time of the rape of Michelle Rogers. So, while living in a trailer in Wilshire, John had allegedly lured 2 teenage girls and sexually abused them. And a police investigation led to evidence that John did the same thing to Michelle. Now, besides the fact that this caused a rift, the police also knew John and Hal's parents had property in Tampa Bay, which he had visited a month before the murders. So they were like, "Oh, it's not just the criminal history, like he had opportunity, right?" But John was a loner and didn't have anyone besides his family. So concocting a plan like hiring someone to murder the Rogers girls was completely out of character, and he wouldn't have had the resources or even have known anybody to have done something like that. Hal Rogers, the father and the husband, was also named as a suspect, which isn't a surprise if we are the true crime aficionados that we are. We know that the husband or everybody close to the victims will come under suspicion at some point. So, Hal Rogers was a suspect. He posted bail for his brother even after he knew about the abuse of Michelle. Um, and I didn't like hearing that, but you also kind of just can't make heads or tails of family dynamics, right? Like, I don't know. I wouldn't be so quick to bail my brother out if he had done something like that to my daughter. But again, you can't really speak on other people's relationships with their family members. You don't really know what's going on there. So I personally would not have posted bail for my brother, but Howe did. So investigators also found that Howe had taken over $7,000 out at the time of the disappearance, but he showed the investigators a satchel of money saying he was going to use it to search for his wife and his daughters before he was told about their deaths because he was, obviously concerned that they went to Florida. He had no way to find out where they were. So his plan was to take that money and basically scour Tampa Bay or wherever he believed they were to try and find them, source leads, do his own private investigation. Um, but another investigation showed that he had not left the state of Ohio in that time, which gave Joan and the daughters time to get away from everyone talking about the John situation. So it was just not panning out for the investigators in terms of trying to pin this on one of the Rogers. So Oba was arrested, and the trial ends up taking place in Clearwater, Florida. Oba testified that he had, in fact, given the Rogers women directions, but he never saw them again after that until the billboards were put up and newspaper articles were written. But he never came forward to tell the police that he had seen them the last night, which might have helped eliminate him as a suspect early on if he had no actual involvement in their murders. So he did acknowledge the fact that he was out on his boat that night, given the fact he could not hide the 3 ship-to-shore calls he had made that night. So he was like, "Yeah, I definitely was out there," because they would have found out anyway if he tried to lie about it. So he claimed he was fishing alone and got home so late because his engine was not starting, which he said was, of course, because of a gas line leak. And he said he found that gas line. Oh, sorry. He said he had found that leak around dawn, so that's why it took him so long to get home. Now, Oba said he did call the Coast Guard and the Florida Marine Patrol, but they were busy somewhere else, so his gas leak would have to wait. When he was finally able to flag down the Coast Guard, they said they were busy and would get to it later, but said he fixed the gas line with duct tape. So Pinellas County prosecutor Douglas Crowe argued with Oba in court to show that he had lied about everything. And all Oba could do when he was confronted with this was just say, like, I don't know. And so, obviously, as a defendant in a murder trial, saying I don't know to things that you should know or should have answers to if you did not commit the crime is not really going to solidify your innocence to the jury. So, there were actually no distress calls made from Oba to the Coast Guard or Marine Patrol that night, and there were not any Coast Guard boats on the bay that morning to help him, so those conversations that he said he had actually never happened. Now, a boat mechanic testified that a gas leak would have sent fuel into the air and not into the boat like Oba claims, due to his Bayliner's engine being upward, unlike normal boats. So, duct tape also would not have kept the gas leak at bay like he claims. So, despite duct tape being the fix all for most things, on a boat like this, it was not the case. So, his defense was quickly being dismantled by every prosecutor's witness that was coming up. Now, there was something that happened on May 15th, 1989. Oba had lured a Canadian tourist, her name was Judy Blair, onto his boat in Madeira Beach, and he raped her, then dropped her back off. Now, she made her way to the hotel room where her friend Barbara Mottram was waiting for her. And so Barbara had decided not to go on the boat, which most likely saved both of their lives. Excuse me, a little itchy here. So Barbara and Judy both reported the rape to the police, but Oba was not charged. And we don't really have any information as to why that happened or why he wasn't charged and arrested. But Judy testified in the trial to show the patterns between the two and testified that on May 14th, Oba met the women in a convenience store and gave them the name Dave and made plans to go out on the boat with them. So, again, this is more so an opportunity, like a crime of opportunity versus premeditated murder. Um, so, on May 15th, Barbara woke up and decided not to go. So, Judy was like, fine, I'll go by myself. And she met Oba alone. So, she seemed, what she testified to was that she noticed that he seemed disappointed that Barbara's that Barbara wasn't there. So the two were on the boat for several hours before Oba asked Judy to get Barbara to join them for dinner. But she was like, no, she doesn't really feel like it. She's not going to do that. And Judy testified Oba seemed ticked off by this. So we know with people like this who like to do things in pairs or multiples, that not having that work out kind of takes away the thrill of that kill, or sometimes they will just be like, fine, but it won't give them the satisfaction that they're looking for. So for Oba to commit sexual assault against Judy makes sense because he had to do something. Now, he knows he wouldn't have been satisfied committing the murder because he would have liked to have Barbara, and also Barbara would have been able to identify him. So he couldn't really take the risk of that, even though there, of course, is inherent risk when you commit sexual assault against somebody. Um, so he was obviously upset with that. Now, once the two got towards the Gulf, he started making advances on her, and despite her refusal, he did rape her. Now, at the trial, Judy identified the clothing Oba was wearing that night, and Barbara picked his photo out of an array of a lineup. So when Oba was asked about the rape of Judy, he ends up invoking his Fifth Amendment right to remain silent, which again, yes, you have the right to do that. But I think from a jury perspective, if I was a prospective juror sitting on this jury and they did that, I'd be like, I mean, that's a very easy way to be like, nope, never happened. So they're obviously, that would kind of make me infer that the person did do that. Now, Oba visited one of his daughters and her husband in Cincinnati in November of 1989. His daughter testified that her dad told her he could not go back to Florida as the police were looking for him as a suspect in a murder case, and that he never really admitted to killing the women. He claimed, or he never also, like, he also never claimed that he was innocent. So he was just like, yeah, they're looking for me, but he wouldn't kind of elaborate on that. And I'd be like, I'm going to need you to get out of my house. But yeah. So Rick Hayes also testified that he thought Oba had committed the crimes on the way, with the way that he was describing the police searching for him. So October 1990, he visited the two again, his daughter and her husband Rick. And Oba and Rick had set up a drug deal, and after running with some of the dealer's money, Oba held a gun to Rick's head and said, "Family don't mean shit to me," before fleeing and leaving Rick to get beaten by the dealers and the Mays household to be badly damaged by them. Can you imagine that? Like, what the hell? I would not be trusting Oba Chandler to do anything with me because he's a piece of crap. So when Crystal, his daughter, was made aware of her father's arrest, she began cooperating with police and began to tape their conversations. So she gave a sworn statement to the state's attorney's office on October 6, 1992. Now, Robert Carlton had testified that he bought a blue and white boat from Oba in July or August of 1989, and he recalled seeing concrete blocks with 2 holes in some of them and 3 in others around his home. Arthur Wayne Stevenson, who shared a cell with Oba for 10 days in 1992, testified that after viewing TV reports about the women's bodies being recovered, Chandler had said he had met the 3 women and given them directions to a boat ramp on the Courtney Campbell Causeway, and that he found one of the women very attractive. Another inmate, Black Leslie, testified that Chandler took a woman from another country on a boat ride, and once he got 20 to 30 miles out, he told her to have sex with him or swim. He said the only reason she was still alive was the fact that that she had someone waiting for her at the docks. So that just kind of tells you the type of person that he is. Let's go into the chat, see what I forgot. Welcome, everybody. Awesome. Daniel says, did rape kits exist during that time? I want to say yes, but I don't think in the way that we think of them now. I think that they swabbed women for fluids because blood types, sperm, um, like non-secretor, that type of thing was happening. So they needed to be able to collect that some way. So they were able to collect that from the women's bodies. I don't really know when rape kits were introduced or when they were starting to be used more frequently in cases of sexual assault. So there were also several marine operators for GTE. That was a telephone company, telecommunications company, you guys. I had like the GTE cordless phone, if anybody remembers that, or if anybody even remembers GTE. That's crazy. But yes, so operators for GTE testified that they collected calls from someone identifying themselves as Oba, Obe, or Obi, or no personal name from March 17th to June 2nd, 1989. Now, the calls were registered to Debbie Chandler. Elizabeth Barrio, an operator, testified that she received 3 collect calls for Deborah Chandler's telephone number at 1:12 and 1:30 a.m. on June 2nd, 1989, but the caller did not give a name, but identified his boat as Gypsy 1. At 9:52 a.m. that morning, they received a call from the same boat, but this time they identified themselves as Obi. Now, Rollins Cooper, who was a subcontractor for Oba during the murders, testified that on June 1st, Oba appeared to be in a big hurry after bringing some sunscreen. When he asked why, Oba said that he had a date with 3 women, and then the next morning when Oba and Rollins met at 7:05 a.m., Rollins asked why he looked so bad, and Oba replied that he was on the boat all night. So he's giving information to various people that he's interacting with, confirming that he was on the boat with 3 women. So it's obvious that it can be alluded that he was with the Rogers family. So Hal Rogers and Michelle's boyfriend both testified during the trial as well. And Oba tried getting an appeal multiple times throughout the trial, but no appeal was successful. He tried to have the trial, like what's it called? A mistrial and everything, and have the case thrown out. So Oba was found guilty on all 3 murders and was sentenced to death on November 4th, 1994. Now, the juror forewoman made a comment regarding the verdict and sentencing, and she said, "They need to do this swiftly. This man is a mutation of a human being, and he needs to be destroyed." I have never heard anything like that before in my life, and I think that's really kind of powerful, um, because for people who are against the death penalty, that would be me, um, you know, I wish you could kind of pick and choose and be like, yes, the worst of the worst should get it. Like, if we know 100% they're guilty, then yes, like, end it. Um, but you won't ever have that 100% confirmation. So it's not worth it to possibly end somebody's life if they are innocent of a crime, which has happened with, capital punishment. So I thought that the words of that forewoman were so kind of powerful. Like, damn, like I've never heard anybody described that way. So yeah, that's just me. So Oba was never charged for the rape of Judy Blair, although he admitted he had sex with her, but of course said it was consensual, and the prosecutors did not want Judy to go through the emotional turmoil of a rape trial, so they opted not to prosecute him. Now, he maintained his innocence while on death row and served his sentence at the Union Correctional Institution. So quickly after he was found guilty, Debbie Chandler, his wife, filed for divorce, and the marriage was done in a year. Um, Due to Debbie's wishes, he was not allowed to see his daughter Whitney nor recent photos of her. So she was just like, nah, you're not coming anywhere near my child. So it was speculated that he had committed other murders due to the fact that he had killed 3 women in one night. So he was never charged for any other murders. And I don't believe to this day there's anything really that's, solidifying him as being responsible for other deaths. So in 2008, Oba was put on the short list for executions. He had received an institutional adjustment disciplinary report on December 15th, 2001, for disobeying orders in prison. He was named one of Florida's most notorious killers and said his last words would be, "Kiss my rosy ass." Except those were not his last words. In May of 2011, one of the jurors in Oba's trial, Roseanne Welton, commented in an interview that the people he murdered did not have a choice of when they were going to die. He should have the death penalty by now. He scared some of the jurors when he would sit there and stare at you and have that stupid grin on his face. He would make his skin crawl, like make your skin crawl. Now, if you have not Googled yet Oba Chandler, recommend that you do so because you'll see him in court. And he does that a lot. Well, he'll stare at the jury or he'll smile at them. And I don't know why he thought that that would like convince them to find him not guilty. Like maybe he would scare them so much, but my thing is like I would rather find you guilty and have you locked up versus being so scared that I find you not guilty and you be out there. Like no thanks. All right. So the execution. The Florida governor at the time was Rick Scott, and he signed a death warrant on October 10th, 2011, the day before Oba's 65th birthday, and the execution was set for November 15th, 2011 at 4 p.m. So Baya Harrison, Oba's lawyer, said Oba asked him not to file anything to keep him alive, and Harrison said he's not, putting a lot of pressure on me to go running around to keep, the end from happening in some magic way. The disciplinary infraction wasn't elaborated on, but it's likely something not like relevant, if you will. They can kind of get shots for using a pencil, so they didn't list what the disciplinary action was, just that he received one. So they said his lawyer was like, yeah, he's not going to try and bemoan the legal system. Like what he told me is this: if there's some legal way that I can try that I can find to try to prevent him from being executed, he would like me to do what I reasonably can. And Harrison also said that Oba suffered from high blood pressure and coronary artery disease and had problems with his kidneys and arthritis. So really, to them, there wasn't a lot of life left in him. So on November 15th, he chose his last meal of 2 salami sandwiches on white bread, 1 peanut butter sandwich on white bread, and iced tea. At 4:08 p.m., the process started, and at 4:25 p.m., Oba was pronounced dead. Hal Rogers, the father and the husband of the victims, attended the execution. Rick Scott made a comment about the decision to sign Oba's death warrant. He said that he killed 3 women, so I looked through different cases, and it made sense to do that one. There's never one thing. It was the right case. So now the media. Now, after the execution happened, there was a note found in Oba's cell written on like a ripped off piece of notebook paper. And it said, "You've executed the wrong man." And people were like, wow, even to this day, like still maintaining his innocence. And so there was some question, like maybe he didn't do it, right? But I think it's obvious that he did. So the Discovery Channel devoted a 1-hour episode concerning the murder of the Rogers family. The case was also one of 3 in an episode of the Discovery series Forensic Detectives. In 1997, a series of articles entitled Angels and Demons, written by Thomas French, was published in the St. Petersburg Times newspaper. And the series told the story of the murders, the capture, and the conviction of Oba and the impact of the crimes on the Rogers family and community in Ohio. The article went on to win the 1998 Pulitzer Prize for feature writing. Now, there is a book called Bodies in the Bay, which was a fictionalized telling of the case. And so that is the case that we covered today of Oba Chandler. And I also thought the last meal was terrible. So Donnie said, what a terrible last meal. Daniel said, would it be considered cruel and unusual punishment if we made him eat a heart attack burger for his last meal? Probably not. I don't think so. I've given thought to this. I don't know what I would want my last meal to be. I probably would like it to be pizza. That's generally what brings me joy. But I don't know. What would your last meal be if you could choose? I'm thinking pizza. And they don't really do that anymore, right? Like Texas stopped doing it. I don't recall if other states do it still or not, but Texas is like, yeah, we are not going to give you the satisfaction of having a last meal. So no thanks. Let me see. I would do pizza for sure. Cranberry juice, water, because I don't drink anything else. I drink like cranberry juice, water, and coffee. And by then I'd probably be like, I'm probably not going to get an iced coffee from Starbucks, and likely had prison coffee, which is disgusting. So I probably wouldn't drink it. And so I would just have water and cranberry juice. Pizza, water, cranberry juice, German chocolate cake, but I only like the top, like the coconut stuff. And I know that's weird. And let me see. I don't know. I think that's it. What would you guys have? Ooh, steak and oh my gosh, yes. I would have a New York strip, medium rare, with scallops. Because imagine I can have all of this stuff, so I would just like have a bite of everything. And it would be the pepperoni that turns up like a little bowl, not the flat ones. The bowl pepperonis are my favorite. Um, Daniel said he would just have ramen, probably. Donnie said steak and lobster with cheesecake for dessert. Ooh, I didn't even think about dessert. Yeah, oh, I did. I said German chocolate cake. So yeah, that's what I would do. I don't know about you guys. But yeah, I thought Oba's case was a little interesting because he had left that note, and it really kind of pissed off the prosecutor um, when he heard about it, even though Oba's already dead through lethal injection. I just thought that was his last like little fu to the system and everything like that. And again, didn't go out taking any accountability whatsoever, continue to try and find a way out of the death penalty. But I think in this instance it was warranted. We knew he did it, so it is what it is. Now next week we are going to be discussing the case of Christa Pike. And I covered it on True Crime Fan Club, and I will be covering it on Crimes of Passion at some point. But yeah, I think you'll see the very stark differences between True Crime Fan Club and Crimes of Passion, because True Crime Fan Club kind of just lays it all out there, right? And Crimes of Passion really does more of a like dramatization, if you will. It's still true, but a dramatization of what occurred. And helps like keep the story flowing, because they're there really kind of truly telling you a story, right? Laying it out like a chapter, if you will. And so if you are bored one day and want to listen to it, feel free to. For those of you who joined us late, I want to just like repeat the announcement I made at the top of the show, which was that on July 14th, I will be in the Los Angeles area, going to the Spotify offices to be on the panel to discuss true crime topics, if you will. Part of that panel will include Max Cutler, who is the founder of Parcast, and Ashley Flowers. She'll be there as well. So really it's there for the book launch of the book Cults. It's $35. The information you can just look on parcast.com, I think, or follow their Twitters. But yeah, you'll get an opportunity to see me hang out. We'll talk about true crime. Also, you'll get a signed copy of the Colts book. And I believe this is also a virtual event. So if you are already on Spotify Live, I believe you'll be able to join that, or it'll be broadcasted on Spotify Live as well. But I will be there in person. I haven't been to the new Spotify office yet. It's been a very long time. I haven't traveled to California for business since the pandemic hit. So it'll be nice to be back and hang out with everybody there. So, yeah, I think that's it in terms of, I just wanted to make sure to mention that. But yeah, also, if you guys have any topics, now this is probably, a short room. I usually go over, so I'm very surprised I'm under time, which makes me very happy. Oh, update. Listen to this, you guys. I've been sick, right? The last month and a half. Haven't been able to record my audiobook, none of that stuff. Then last week, last week, Monday, we got this notification from my daughter's daycare that somebody in the class has hand, foot, and mouth. And I was like, are you kidding me right now? Like, please give me a break. Really was terrified from a parent perspective, because I hear adults can get like sores in their mouth or all over their hands and feet. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm going to be like a vestibule of like sores on my hands and feet. Can't walk, can't talk, can't do anything. Who's going to take care of my child? Because my husband would also get it and just be like useless to me. Thankfully, she seems to be like having a very mild case of it. And yeah, I'm just hoping we can get this out. Get this out of our house, Let me see. And then, of course, if you guys have anything you want to discuss, feel free to share that in the chat. Um, yeah. Oh, and my friend got it really badly, which is what scared me the most because knew of two people who got it, who had the sores like all over their body, palms. I'm talking to you guys. This is on the. If you've never heard of hand, foot, and mouth, consider yourself lucky. If you've never experienced it, have a child who's had it, or been around a child who's had it, consider yourself very lucky. I hope you never deal with something like that. So they get sores all over their hands, all over their feet, and then they're supposed to burst and be disgusting. So I don't know. It's weird. But yeah, so let me see. There was something else. Oh, I don't know, you guys. Do you want to discuss the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard thing while we're here? Or are we all over it by now? Some people aren't. Some people are. It just depends. Hi, XV. Welcome. Also drop your ASL in the chat. That's what we do here when you're joining us. Okay, so just real quick on the Johnny Depp thing. So previously, I did cover it for the part 1, and that was, I think, right after Johnny had finished his testimony, and I didn't really get into Amber Heard stuff or anything like that. Because I just was, I was just like, oh, maybe it's oversaturation. Everybody's hearing it from all over the place. So let's get into it. Now, I thought there was such a stark difference between the testimonies. Now that I have an opportunity to look at it kind of holistically from start to finish, I really wanted to go back through the trial to determine, like, was I being biased? Because I'm not a huge Johnny Depp fan whatsoever. Like, you won't see me be like, "Oh my god, Pirates is out," or anything. Like, I'm not one of those people whatsoever. Um, I am a pop culture fanatic. So I am very well embedded in, like, unnecessary pop culture knowledge, trivia, all that stuff. Um, and so when I heard that he was bringing this defamation case towards Amber, I thought that was very telling because I said, listen, if you know anything about Johnny Depp, just even like peripheral, like from the peripheral, I can't even speak today. Oh my God. I hate everything. You should have seen me at my recording session with Parcast. It was not good. And I'm usually like on point. I can't speak for some reason. Anyways, he's notoriously very private. Like, this dude legit bought an island to stay away from people. Very private about his family, about his relationships. It wasn't until he got into this relationship with Amber Heard that all of this stuff about him started coming out, right? And then when the divorce happened, I wasn't shocked because I was just like, I mean, Johnny Depp is a la George Clooney, right? Like, relationship, 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 and then maybe a marriage. But same thing, never expected George Clooney to get married. So I didn't really expect Johnny to find somebody that he would want to be with long term when he was with Vanessa for so long, right? So I was surprised by the marriage to Amber Heard, not surprised by the divorce, but was surprised about the after, right? All of the allegations that came out, because I was like, nobody in the history since Winona Ryder, right? That's the earliest memory I have of him dating somebody who's a celebrity in public, has levied these types of allegations against him. Now, Ellen Barkin did get on the stand. I'm assuming for the defense. I don't think her testimony was that impactful. She said that, he would get drunk. Not a surprise. Everybody knows that Johnny enjoys liquor, wine, beverages of all alcoholic sorts, and drugs of all sorts. But drinking and using drugs does not make you an abuser, right? And oh my god, mega pints and piles of cocaine. Exactly. So it doesn't make you an abuser. That was my favorite interaction. It was like a mega pint. He was great on the stand, in my opinion. He was very calm, cool. He did lose his facade of the chill guy when he would engage with Rottenborn in some instances. Like, he tried to he tried to kind of like keep that funny engagement going, because I think he knew that it played well to the cameras, it played well to the audience. He got a couple of laughs. And there were some instances, especially during his second cross, where I was like, I would tone it down. So I didn't really have any issues with his cross-examination, with his testimony. And the whole hearsay thing was hilarious to me. Now, when it goes forward and Amber, okay, so XV says that Amber sniffed the cocaine in court. I'm of the camp that I think that that was a doctored video because I don't foresee it. And I also don't know if we ever found out what was in the water bottle. I think Law and Crime covered that or may have like exposed it, but I have no idea. Um, okay, so anyways, so then Amber gets on the stand, and to me, it's like she just did not do well on the stand. I don't I think I want to believe that her lawyers prepped her and told her how she should come off. You know what I mean? Because and my thinking is, right, if Dr. Curry, who I believe is a um reputable and believable witness in terms of the observations she's had of Amber's psychology, etc., all that stuff. I would want to believe that based off of Dr. Curry's evaluation of Amber, she is basically living up to everything Dr. Curry testified to in her testimony and observation. I saw it in the Today show or whatever show she did with Savannah Guthrie and everything, and it's still the same like facade of this victim. Now, I don't here's what I will say about this because I'm in the camp of believe all women, right? Um to an extent. I say believe all women, and once they show us, like, what's happened, like, yes, like, with the Harvey Weinstein thing, like, there were multiple instances of evidence that were available, and that's what led to his conviction, right? But it took somebody being brave enough to speak out about it. So, if you initially believe that's what Amber did, then right, amazing, kudos, right? Like, good job for being brave enough to step up and kind of stand up against this, powerhouse, right? But if it was anybody else other than Johnny Depp, I might have been like, but as soon as I heard those, I was like, "Oh, that doesn't seem like the Johnny Depp the public knows," right? He's an intentionally flawed human being, and he's very forthcoming of that. Um, he he never, like, made excuses. He was like, "Yeah, I did MDMA," or, "Yeah, I did this," or he's always been forthcoming about that. What I had a problem with was that Amber was never accountable for anything that she did. I think that they were both abusive towards each other. Um, you know, Amber, I think, was more physically abusive, if not the main physical abuser, and that Johnny was maybe verbally or emotionally abusive because of the environment that he was in. I don't think that they, brought out the best in each other, and they probably knew that before they got married, and they should have not ever entered into a relationship with each other, or intertwined their lives so much, and it's really unfortunate to see how much she and her friends took advantage of his generosity. Um, and then the photos, when we had that guy come in, the one from Johnny's side come in, the expert, I was like, "You can't dispute that, dude." It's just like, it's obvious these are doctored photos. And I don't know what reasonable person wouldn't have been able to tell that. That's like, this is just a filtered photo of the same exact thing. And I really, really am glad that they chose Camille Vasquez to do her cross examination because she is very stoic, very to the point, and is not somebody who's swayed by the emotion being displayed by Amber on the stand. And that's something I really appreciated because I think if it was Ben Chu or any of the other male lawyers, it would have instantly been in the media that, Amber victimized again by men and something like this, or like she would have played off of that. I'm pretty sure, given everything we saw on the stand, that she would have said, like, "You're abusing me just like he abused me." It honestly gave me a lot of, Jodi Arias vibes. If you guys watched the Jodi Arias trial, she did the same thing to Juan Martinez, right? It was like, you're abusing me just like Travis abused me, because the way Juan Martinez was, cross-examining her and questioning her, like he was an aggressive prosecutor. Um, and so I'm really glad that they chose to go with Amber Heard. Now, there are people within this community, the true crime community, who believe Amber Heard. And I don't know how or why. I don't see it. Like, I'm not a fan of either one of them. To me, Johnny was more believable, not because he was a man, because I agree with Camille and Ben in saying that domestic violence doesn't have a gender. And if we think about this, like, it's so true, because men are less likely to come forward when they're being abused. Um, and it's just a kind of interesting take to see people, who support her and why. I think that most of them don't really understand what happened in the UK trial or the nuances behind that, because if you had been following the UK trial, that the judge in the case, like, had some relationship with the head honcho of the Sun in some form or fashion. So it was already like, um not great, right? And so it was like, yeah, of course you'd lose. And the suppression of evidence, my favorite thing, right, is that Elaine, Amber's attorney, went on like this talk show roundup the day after. And then when Ben Chu and Camille Vasquez go on like the week later, just like, oh, they're doing a victory lap and setting women's rights back and all this stuff. And I'm like, you literally just did this. Like, what are you talking about? So the fact that they are blaming the jury for being so mesmerized by Johnny Depp and being so like influenced by social media, I think is kind of like a dig at their intelligence. Because I'm just like, I wouldn't appreciate that if I stood by the admonishment that I was given by the judge and did not research, did not engage in social media or anything like that. You're calling me stupid. You're basically saying, like, I'm so fooled by Johnny Depp. Hello, he's an actor. You think that people aren't putting that at the forefront, like, is he acting or is he doing this? Like, come on. So I think that it's not going to help her case. And I think that she just wasn't a credible witness for her own defense. I mean, saying pledged versus donate, and I use those interchangeably. I'm like, no reasonable person is going to see that and be like, oh, well. And then when you say you can't do it because Johnny's suing you, but you had the full amount before any type of lawsuit came your way, it really speaks to what many people believe is the actual motive, was that she really was just trying to get his money, that she was trying to get more of his money and actually trying to get him to pay what she had pledged, and being like, oh, if you want to do this, because I remember he had offered to make the donation to them himself and said, like, oh, if that's where you want it to go, I'm happy to send it to them. And she's like, no, 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 if you're going to do it, then you need to pay 14 million. And it was just like, ridiculous, right? Like, she wanted a tax benefit and break, but she to something she was never going to make or do. Then she tried to entice Elon Musk to do it, which hilarious. She has poor taste in men, I think, is what we can reasonably assume here. Um, Amber was an actress, yes. Not a very good one. So yeah, I definitely believe that they are both responsible. I don't know that it's an equal responsibility, other than that they should have walked away from each other from the get-go. The first instance of there being any like weird issues between them, where it was like a major red flag, he should have walked away. She would have never walked away, because if we believe Dr. Curry's prognosis of her during her observation, it's that narcissists don't do things like that. They're going to gaslight you, make you stay, make you feel this way. And there was one instance in the audio that was recorded between them where he was like, I'm not willing to give myself up for you. Like, I don't love you that much. And I wish that he would have seen that before this all happened. Um, but yeah, I mean, Johnny Depp will be just fine, because even in my opinion, even if he had lost the defamation case, he won in the court of public opinion. So he already got his reputation back. He's already going to have lucrative deals. Amber is not going to get anything out of this other than a talk show run around for the next week or two. Then she might do a book, which I don't think she understands. This isn't a First Amendment issue. She keeps saying that. She keeps saying, like, this is a First Amendment issue. Like, my right to speak. And it's like, no, you're not speaking truth to power. You can't say things that are inherently untrue or that people believe to be untrue. Like, they didn't believe the evidence that you presented. Um, and she chose to get on Sam because narcissists believe that this is something they can do to convince people. They've had success. And I feel really bad for her sister who's been wrapped up in this, because I really just was like looking at her the whole time during the trial being like, all you have to do is tap Camille on the shoulder and be like, listen, I lied. I committed perjury. So sorry about that. Here's this. Because you know what? People would have paid. People would have paid Whitney Hurd so much money to share her story and her experience about the abuse she allegedly, because I don't want to get sued, allegedly, you know, felt at the hand of her sister. So I mean, yeah. But again, she's also, if we're to believe that Amber Heard is an abuser, then she's likely abusing the people around her, which also makes me concerned for her child. Um, but I hope that that's not the case. So I don't know. So yeah, I'm very interested to see how this appeal goes. I'm interested to see when the payments are due to Johnny Depp. Because I think that now that she's kind of digging her heels in and saying like, yeah, this is the truth. This is the truth. I kind of want him to make her pay the full 10 million now and to be like, listen, your actions have consequences. This is what's going to happen from that. So, um, I kind of would like to hear from somebody who actually supports her and tells me why. Um, from the legal case of it, like even through the suppression stuff from the UK stuff, a lot of that wouldn't be admitted from my very limited understanding of the law. A lot of that wouldn't have been admitted in the US court system. So, is that to say that it's irrelevant? Probably not. Um, but that's kind of how our system is set up. And again, I think they're both equally culpable. I think they were abusers in their own way towards each other. And I think that they're better apart. And I worry for anybody else who engages in a relationship with Amber Heard, based off of how quickly she shifts. You saw it on the stand, how quickly she shifts from like crying to like, no, I didn't say that. And like, you could see the anger just like flash on her face, and the mask that she was using um, drop when Camille suggested that Johnny Depp is the one responsible for getting her Aquaman. And if you've heard any of the TikToks or follow TikTok, like Aquaman. I say that a lot now. So yeah, so I don't know. I'm interested to see where this goes after the fact. And like I said, either way, the verdict would have gone in court. Johnny won in the court of public opinion, which I think was his plan, or his hope all along, was that would happen. Because he may need the money. I don't know. He may have spent too much of it, but yeah, I'm not worried about it. But I think Amber going on this round and kind of dissing the jury and the judge and the attorneys, it's not a good look for her, and I don't think it will help in her appeal, or sway the court of public opinion in her favor, because the damage has already been done, and I don't know. I don't know what's next for her. Maybe somebody will take her on. I have no idea. Or maybe she'll expose that Elon Musk is her father, as the father of her child, and then take him up for child support. I have no idea. Um, I would be surprised that if those were their embryos together, um, that he didn't put something in place to prevent that from happening, from preventing the world from knowing that that's his daughter, which is also just kind of a shitty thing to do. Um, but it's Elon Musk, so, like, is she having a better parent with Amber, or is she having a better parent with Elon? I have no idea. Um, oh my god, Mom, I swear to God. Okay, anyways, my mom literally calls me every single time when I'm on live. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. Anyways, okay, so well over my time. So sorry. Thank you all for joining me. We'll be back next Tuesday on our stream and on Spotify Live to discuss the case of Christa Pike. It was the murder of Colleen Slemmer. Feel free to do your own research so you come up with questions for the next time. I always welcome it. It is another interesting case about teens potentially trying to better themselves, but then not doing I think it'll speak to, and maybe we can have a discussion on this next week about how trauma in early life can lead to people potentially committing these types of crimes, and what kind of excuse we would give them for that, like what kind of leeway we would give them, right? I don't know. It's a lot to discuss, a lot to think about. So we'll have that ready for you next week. If you want to follow me on social, links are in the description, but you can also click on my picture if you're on Spotify Live. Follow me on Twitter, and I will see you next week. So thank you again for joining me for True Crime Convos, part of Spotify Live's True Crime Tuesdays content. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Have a good night. Bye, friends.